And the first thing we're going to talk about off the top is this. Rob, there was some buzz and speculation going around the other day with news that there was going to be a big announcement about Star Wars yesterday. Everybody's talking about there's going to be a big Star Wars announcement yesterday. Well, the announcement came out, and frankly, it was a little bit underwhelming because it really doesn't have anything to do with Disney Plus or the movies or TV show. But what it was about was their launching of a new phase, if you will, of Star Wars. Their first real big concerted post-Skywalker saga stuff. And it's going to be a series of books and comic books that they're titling Star Wars: The High Republic. And what that story is going to be and all that kind of stuff. Again, and now when I say it was a little bit underwhelming, I don't mean to downplay the joy and wonders that are books and novels. Not at all. It's just that a lot of us thought maybe it could be movie or TV announcements. But you can tell some terrific stories in these things. The thing that caught my attention about this announcement, though, Rob, because they didn't give away any plot details. They just said, look, they've got this new group of villains. It's set a few hundred years before the events of Star Wars, A New Hope, that the traditional first Star Wars movie. Going to have new heroes, new villains. You got the Jedi in their prime. You're going to have all this kind of stuff. And all that was very interesting to hear. The part that was fascinating to me, though, about this video that they released announcing Star Wars: The High Republic was how they are developing this. What they did, Rob, in this video was they collected a bunch of high-profile writers to gather together at Skywalker Ranch, one of which is including probably my favorite Star Wars author, Claudia Gray, who did those Leia novels. She did Master and Apprentice. Most importantly, she did Lost Stars. She's fabulous. Love her. And I love her work. And basically, they gathered all these writers to plot out what is this new Star Wars world, this world of the High Republic. What is this going to look like? What are going to be our story threads? What's going to be our overall thing going on? Then they brought in concept artists to draw these things and what these things are going to look like and all this kind of stuff. And they put so much love and care into the development of this thing, charting out, plotting out where all these books are going to go, where all these things are going to go, gather great minds, blah, blah, blah. And a thought crossed my mind, Robert, and it's a thought that you and I were talking beforehand, just before we started the show, and you echoed a thought that I had in my head when looking at all this prep work, all this groundwork, gathering together all these minds, charting out what this whole thing is going to look like across all these books. I don't want to steer your thunder, Rob, so what did you say when we were talking about this? What was the thought that came to your head when you saw all this?
Well, the first thing that I was thinking about is, why wouldn't you apply all this creativity to, I don't know, a movie trilogy?
Right?
Where you sit down and you have all of these great minds that know Star Wars. You bring in the concept designer who designed Darth Maul, and you basically plot out your whole milieu, your whole era. They even have they're showing the Jedi at the height of their powers. And the idea that the Jedi were scattered across the galaxy, and they were more like Texas Rangers. There was this whole idea, everything I heard in it, I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. And then once you have all of this backstory set up, then say you were doing a movie in the High Republic era, then you have these writers sort of build you a framework that you can then set your trilogies in or set your standalone movies in, because you've got all of this backstory that has been meticulously plotted out. And it would be so helpful. And I just don't understand why every franchise, whether it's, I don't know, pick one, Alien, Predator, hell, if you want to bring back John McClane or Axel Foley in the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, if you've got these multimedia outlets, whether it's comics or novels or video games, I mean, they kind of did the same thing with Shadows of the Empire when that came out in the mid-90s. They had the novel that came out. They had the video game that came out. They had a toy line that came out, Prince Zizor and all this. And I was just like, this is how franchise properties should be handled. And what's interesting is it would allow a filmmaker freedom, when you have your framework set up and you've been given sort of, here's what's happening, then you're kind of free to come in and plot your story, and you have a sounding board to go, well, would this happen? Would that happen? And they can advise you, and then you can make a film that feels, or multiple films that feel fleshed out. It's like what the Lord of the Rings had. You have the Silmarillion. Christopher Tolkien came in and took all of his father's notes and was able to flesh out the world of Middle-earth, and Peter Jackson and Philippa and Fran had all of that information to draw upon. And it would make the creative process, I would think, so much easier.
I agree. And listen, again, you have to take what I'm about to say, take it with a grain of salt, that I like, other than The Rise of Skywalker, I like all the movies we've gotten from this iteration of Lucasfilm. I've liked them all. A couple of them I've desperately loved. Some of them, I liked a little bit less than others, but I like them all. But one of the clear weaknesses of what Star Wars has done on the big screen in the last number of years, and what has really manifested itself out, was the fact that they had no frickin' plan. They had no frickin' plan, Rob. So why? Yes. Why? And so that's one of the things. I'm looking, as I'm watching this video last night, of them gathering these minds and talking about, before we write that first book, we got to know where everything's going. we got to know what are our threads, who are our villains, what are going to be our heroes' journeys, who are going to be these new bounty hunters, who are going to be these new scoundrels, who are going to be these new Jedi, who are going to be the new threats in the universe. We got to know what all this is. I mean, we wouldn't be foolish enough to start writing all this stuff without knowing what our world is, would we? And I'm sitting there watching this last night and going, why are you just figuring this out now? Why do the books, and all due respect to the books, I love a number of them, but I'm saying, why do the books get this kind of love, care, attention, respect, detail? Why do the books get this? Meanwhile, the movies are, hey, you want to make a Star Wars movie? Yeah, go make one. What would you like me to do? Just go. Go, whatever you want to do. We'll figure the rest out later. How come the books get this type of love and attention and patience and detail and thought and strategy and thinking it out? Because listen, you could strategize them all out. Maybe they turn out to be terrible, but at least they'd be consistent with each other, and you give yourself a leg up and you give yourself an advantage when you start from a position like that. And look, and maybe if I want to be optimistic, I can say, well, maybe this whole thing, Rob, that we're seeing with them and the High Republic, maybe this is them visibly in front of our eyes learning their lesson. Like, if I want to be optimistic about it, maybe I can look at this whole situation and say, well, okay, so Lucasfilm has learned from their mistakes. They realize how we approach those movies, even though I think a couple of them are really good, but how we approach the movies wasn't the best approach. Maybe we should have had a long laid out plan. We've learned our lesson, and so now we're going to start applying that lesson to the books. The skeptical side of me is that, well, the people who are running the novel side for Kathleen Kennedy over there just had a much better idea on how to do things otherwise. But again, it left me feeling very, I'll use the phrase, this is like an early 1600s scientific phrase, but I admit I feel butthurt. I just feel butthurt. As
that
a
old
film
phrase.
Fan, just the old scientific
in
idiom.
Old English. The
Old English. I am yea verily just butthurt as a film fan that the movies didn't get that kind of love. So hey, good on the books. And you know what, Rob? There's a part of me, I realize, there's a part of me that's taking this, which should be a, hey, attaboy, you're doing this great idea with the books and you're doing it the right way, and I'm taking it and using it for an opportunity to feel sour about why the hell didn't you do that with the movies? But
right.
I don't know. But what do you think? What do you think of what we're seeing? Like, approach aside, what do you think about this High Republic stuff that we're looking at?
Well, first of all, I liked the whole idea of it. I liked what the character designs. I'm like, those are badass. And what's interesting is you have it's the same thing that happens on a movie. You have designers who are designing based on what they're reading in the script pages. But what I really liked about it was when you have now a universe that's so large, that has so many different facets to it. You have all of these people literally like it looked like a television writer's room. People are sitting around a table. There's somebody writing on a whiteboard.
Some high-profile people.
High-profile people that are writing, and you put all the best ideas on the board, and suddenly, with deft, intelligent writers, you start bouncing off one another. And I don't know if there's an actual showrunner who gets to filter these ideas, but everything I saw, the creativity going on, and everybody's going to break off and do their own books, and it gives them the framework that they need. It was I thought it was very inspiring, and the characters that they were coming up with and the reasons they had behind why the characters look the way they do. And there's so much rich, deep backstory that it would allow people freedom to then come in and come up with storylines based on the milieu. You know, it's like when you're making a historical epic. We already know what happened in that era, so you have a freedom to set your story. If you're telling a World War II tale, I mean, you can make up a story set in World War II between characters that are fictionalized, but you have the whole milieu. You know what the time looked like. You know what the two sides, or all the sides, the Axis and the Allied powers wanted. You know what happened when. You know, you've got all of this backstory already plotted out for you. So when you want to tell, say, a story about star-crossed lovers falling in love on a certain date, you know, during the Blitz in London or something, you already have so much rich history to draw from to inform your story that it would make it easier.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Anyway, guys, question is, what did you think about that Star Wars The High Republic era video? I thought the video was a really cool thing put together. Like I said, I'm just, as the ancient Latin would say, butthurt that they didn't give that attention to my movies. What do you guys think about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay,